Hello, ridiculously happy people. Today I'm excited to share a conversation with you that I had with Jessy from the agency Models in London, Ontario. Jessy has a lot of experience educating young models in preparing for photo shoots, and she also owns her own skincare line. So I think the information that she has to share will really help all of you prepare for your family photo session or for photos on your wedding day. Check it out. So, hi everyone. I'm here today with Jessy Déroneth from the agency Models in London, as well as Nature's Way Body Care. Jessy, could you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Thanks again, Sophia, for having me. My name is Jessy, and yes, it all started with me modeling for a modeling agency called the Agency Models in London, Ontario. As I started modeling, I kind of was a little bit shorter for the type of modeling I wanted to do, so I got more involved with skincare, styling, makeup artistry, and fashion show organization altogether, event management as well there too. And then, of course, as I got more into it, I ended up doing more of the teaching as well as the booking in the long run. But basically, it all started with scouting the models, and then from there, you have to teach them how to work in that industry. Based on that, whenever I was teaching the skincare aspect of things, some of our skincare supply wasn't no longer available to provide us with those skincare altogether. So, being a woman of color myself, I was already experimenting with how to make a conditioner for myself, and of course, you keep buying bottles of Redken that cost you $60, and that's the biggest bottle available. You use half the bottle in one use. Not quite cost effective. So basically, I decided that I was going to try and see if I can do my own conditioner. And then I remember looking up a few websites and then looking at a few recipes. And then my boyfriend and I, my boyfriend comes in and he's like, "Wouldn't it be cool if you did your own skincare and you were so good at it you can actually sell it?" And I was like, "No way! I wouldn't do such a thing. Come on!" And then fast forward 8 years later, here I am with a skincare line that I started developing based on the fact that um, doing a conditioner was very similar, just with different ingredients, but the process of mixing was pretty much very similar to doing a moisturizer. And then, of course, that was the hardest part altogether. So once I got to know the rest of it, well, therefore, I ended up with a full line that I felt really I had a lot of success with the models, and I extended that to doing my own company altogether.
Sounds like you have a lot on the go.
I think everybody does.
Yeah. So, with regards to photo shoots, then, what do you think are the biggest mistakes that people make when they're preparing to have their photo taken?
I think the biggest mistake would be that you know it all, and everybody's a model and everybody's a photographer. So therefore, everybody has had experience, or everybody has had experience taking shots of themselves, or watching America's Next Top Model and thinking how it is done, and they've practiced with their friends already to know. So basically, people take pictures of themselves, but they never wanting to widen their horizon as to what looks good before done. So they get stuck with a certain image of themselves that they've been told on Facebook that looks good on them, and they just keep doing that.
Yeah, I've noticed that a lot myself. For example, when I'm shooting weddings,
Right.
because I'll work with the couple a lot, but as soon as the wedding party comes in, I might never have met them before. And I've noticed that especially a lot of the bridesmaids have had a lot of training where they've looked at a lot of magazines and watched a lot of TV, and they have an idea of how to pose their body for the camera that doesn't necessarily always work. So, for example, putting their hand on their hip, they think it makes them look slimmer when in fact they end up taking up more space in the photo, so they're making themselves look bigger.
I mean, it can work. It's just in a certain context, and what you see in a magazine setting, and then of course what you're doing for your own wedding picture. I mean, you're looking at two different. They are two different instances where effectively you're trying to cram as many people from the groom and the bride into one picture. Next thing you know, you're taking that wide of yourself. Uh, Fortunately, the model that was doing the shoot, she only had herself to play with. Pictures that you see are often a business Pictures that you take for yourself or not is not a business. It's a representation of yourself that you're going to bring forward in the future to your children, your grandparents, and such.
Mm-hmm.
You
That's
have
a
to, as much as that personal element in.
yeah. That's a really good way of looking at it, actually. Um, I like that. I'm going to use that in the future.
Hey, you got to.
Now, you mentioned earlier that you sort of got into skincare and you were thinking about, being a black woman, how you could sort of maximize your skincare and your hair care. And I'm wondering if you could share some of the tips that you've developed for yourself, for example, for preparing your skin and your hair for a photo shoot.
Little things that I've noticed that made a difference, and of course, it's a bit of a controversial subject among people of dark skin, and I can say dark skin, but um, it's also a trend in China where um, you want to look brighter than your skin type. And it's something that's, again, it's a bit controversial and it can touch really deeply a lot of female or that female males as well there too, but you've seen it enough that and you probably are familiar with black female in the media, and suddenly they look brighter than they usually are. And you look at their picture and it's like she looks a little bit more pale sort of thing. So what comes in with that is brightening creams and an just wanting to brighten your skin, and especially whenever you are you're a teenager and you're coming across a lot of zit, you find a lot of darker spot. And I mean, for on lighter skin you tend to go red, but on darker skin it go pitch black. And I mean, it'll heal as time goes. It's just that it adds to that self-concern altogether, because again, you're being told by a generation of people that darker skin is not so great, for one thing. And then for two, you do have these little things on your skin that can make little spots all over that aren't just, they're just basically scarring pretty much, right? And then again, there's these skin brightening creams that are on the market that are not so great because they have hydroquinone, and which is pretty sure that it's not bad in small amounts altogether. But there's been some research showing that effectively over the course of time, it just reverses melanin in your skin, so you just end up looking like Michael Jackson over the course of time. And then most of them have mercury in them. And of course, we're not going to go through the whole thing with mercury altogether. We all know how toxic it is, especially once it accumulates into your body altogether. It's a toxic. It has toxicity effect into the body altogether. So a lot of women put these on as a mean to brighten their skin. I was more so introduced to them as a mean to brighten um, just those little scarring tissue altogether. And then once I started, doing more and more skincare, I realized that lemon, no pun intended, of course, lemon is actually natural skin. And I don't want to say bleach, because the idea is not to bleach the skin. The idea is just to kind of heal those little spots that have been affected. Is a good way to doing so without effectively going overboard of what the skin is supposed to be altogether. So again, because that self-consciousness of having, again, we're talking about pitch black spots that are just scar tissue that's going to take years, and sometimes, if you don't do anything at all, maybe it won't heal at all before it goes away. You just the lemon um, is a good one altogether. So you'll find that I use a lot of my skincare, but then lemon also has other properties that are really balancing to oilier skin types. And because people with darker skin tend to have more melanin, melanin tends to also hold a lot more oil. So it really helps with balancing your skin's pH, because your skin is slightly acidic anyway. But again, it helps with not overproducing those oils that usually would overproduce altogether. So you get a double whammy that way. And then again, it's a bit controversial because I don't want to promote the idea of bleaching your skin for the sake of looking brighter, but I do want to promote having a brighter complexion, your own complexion of what it is, but just cleared out altogether.
What about men's skincare? Do you have any tips for men? Because I know a lot of men are like, skincare, no, that's for girls.
And that's exactly my first tip for men, is that remember that skin is skin. There's no such thing as men's skin and female skin. It's all skin. basically the same skincare that I go through for female applies to the males as well there too, which regards to cleansing, toning, moisturizing. And it seems like it's a little bit tedious for male because for female you've been told to do that since you're young, or at least you've been told to look after your skin since you're young. You're not told that whenever you're a young guy, unfortunately. And of course that adds to, especially if you're a teenager, for example, and then you have all these problems that erupts all of a sudden. Um, it really decreases your confidence, for one thing. The main thing I would say that I can see a lot of men um, suffering with is definitely going to be the flakiness and dry skin. And it can be embarrassing as well there too, because you're going for a job interview and then you have flakes all over the place. But mind you, it's minus 30 in January. Skin gets dry. Don't be afraid of moisturizing. Don't be afraid of buying, sorry, a moisturizer. And then don't get caught in the mistake of saying, but I want a male moisturizer. The only difference is the packaging. And I mean, mind you, people have different skin types, so that's going to play into it as well there too. But sometimes I show a product to a male and it's like, okay, but do you have something for guys? It's like, it's not about the outside of the bottle, it's about the inside. And of course, you have these lines that specialize for men care altogether, but it's nothing special about the skin, and there's no specific ingredient in that bottle that makes it more different. It's just the packaging itself is not as pink and rosy with flowers.
So, with that, are there any big mistakes that you see men making when they're preparing for a photo shoot or at a photo shoot, for example?
Exactly that, not thinking that you're male and you don't need anything else. It's like, okay, well, now you're taking a picture, and then unfortunately, your forehead is shining and will actually glare for the whole world to be able to see. Great, you have to give us all humanity from blindness. But you need the makeup, unfortunately. Well, fortunately or fortunately, whichever way you want to see it. Um, you do need the makeup in order to, powder it up, even up the skin tone. Again, skin for you is not as different as the skin for women. There's going to be, and I mean, I'd promote makeup with regards to an extra tool to enhance and to your natural beauty altogether. And of course, because we're working with a camera, the camera picks up little things that people wouldn't necessarily look for in life altogether. So I don't want to say people should be wearing makeup all the time. I believe that your best foundation is your skin altogether. I'm not wearing makeup all the time. However, if you're going to do a shoot specifically, again, the camera has this great ability to pinpoint little things that you wouldn't see otherwise. So that's going to be, little unevenness to the skin, for example. And sometimes it can overshadow some of your best features altogether. Sometimes it's just plain looks weird. It makes your one eye looks bigger than the other all of a sudden. Hiring a makeup artist for a wedding is not only for the female, but it's also for the male as well there too. Evening out the skin tone. The skin tone is also very important.
Yeah, I know a lot of my clients will say when we're just meeting up for their engagement session, for example, we've never done this before. What should we do?
Like, what
And
should you be prepared for? I will
yeah,
put foundation on your forehead. Are you
yeah,
confident? It does. It doesn't emasculate you. It doesn't make you
no,
a girl. It's just business. It's just
exactly.
fun. The camera has this weird way of viewing you that the way I see you, but then the way that the camera will pick up on things and almost distort things. So having that little bit of powder and a little bit of makeup makes quite a difference. Um, that's why you see a lot of stars actually putting on some, and I mean male stars putting on sometimes eyeliner or a little bit of mascara if you're on stage, because chances are that by the time you get way at the back of the audience, people are not going to be able to see you, or they take pictures of you, but all of a sudden you don't have eyes. Of course you have eyes. Everybody knows you have eyes. The camera doesn't know that, however. So that's where these little things are there in order to um, pick up on these little things, and it doesn't make you less of a male to have that kind of help altogether.
Do you have any memorable photography disaster stories?
I do. I have too many of them. The one was really recent, and it was just about miscommunication. I sent out, I think it was a Saturday, I sent out all the information to both the model and the photographer that was going to do both the video as well as the pictures as well. There were two of them. So one of them was a videographer, the other one was a photographer. So we were setting her up to do all of these all at once, so for me to send to the scout altogether. And then here I am, and of course, being all internet based, I can do this from home very easily. But I have my cell phone with me at all time, and then we've been communicating back and forth from Saturday, Sunday, Monday was the day that it was all supposed to happen, and then even on Monday she's asking about makeup, and I reply pretty quickly to her until the time comes, and then she's like, "We're there. There's nobody." And it didn't sound like it was that bad, but apparently there was this whole panic that happened that I wasn't there to see, obviously. Just figure, oh, she's not able to get in. There's nobody there. Okay. Well, then I contact the photographer. He's like, yeah, since last time we've actually moved. Oh, well, thanks for letting me know because I sent you an email 2 days ago asking you to confirm the address, which you didn't say much or nothing at all, actually. I just assumed that everything was fine. Never assume everything is fine in this industry. And so by the time I get back to the model, she's like, "Yep, talked to the photographer already. We're on the way there." Okay. So later on that night, and I mean, I'm thinking everything is fine, right? Later on that night, we get this email. Of course, my boss gets this email, and it's a full letter complaint from the mother of the model. And of course, I have to give it to her because, especially modeling agent, the modeling industry, has you have to be careful. That's for sure, And of course, your mother, you have your young daughter that wants to be a model, and she's pretty, Of course, you're gonna be worried about, things being done right, things being done on time. So I can understand the panic, but of course, I'm sitting on the other end here where I'm thinking, yeah, everything is fine. So for one thing, the mother was really upset about the fact that I wasn't there to be reached whatsoever. So apparently she had tried to call me several times, 2 hours before the shoot even, not realizing that she called the office. See, she never called my personal cell phone, which I had with me at all time, and I'm just keep waiting to see if there's any calls, and it appears there's nothing altogether. And then, of course, by the time she got in touch with my boss that earlier that day, they had been crying, they were distressed, they were severely stressed. And then, of course, that was her number one complaint. And then for two, that I didn't send the email to the photographer, and that some of the instruction that I had given were a little bit different than what they had already started to do by the time the email was sent. And it's so basically her main two things for her was that one, I was not available to be reached at all because I was not answering the phone number that she had, which was not a phone number I had access to. And then two, I did not send the information to the photographer, which I have done a couple days ago. It's just that you can see how all of this is all miscommunication.
Yeah, that's one thing I always recommend to people is to talk to your photographer.
Exactly.
But even before you book them, have a voice conversation with them at the very
Right.
least, because as we know, text communication is not always an indication of someone's personality.
Exactly, right. And
Mm-hmm.
then of course, the amount of surprise you get too is like, no, that's not what I meant.
Mm-hmm.
Or and it's all just words. So how
Mm-hmm.
people use one word or another it can make quite a difference.
Yeah.
So and I think pretty much if I can think back to all of the shoes that we've had that didn't turn out so well, and I mean I have quite a great amount of shoes that went very well, but often enough again miscommunication issues is always going to be the thing, especially
Mm-hmm.
in this internet age right now.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, I'm glad that that session turned out well. Now, do you have a number one piece of advice for people planning for a photo session or couples planning for photos on their wedding day, for example?
the keyword being planning,
Yeah.
especially because I think people spend so much time in the other aspect of a wedding that they forget to plan for the photos while they're too. And I think even getting like a coaching session would help as well there. And I think that I know a few people that do great coaching session, but they do it for. It seems like their client that come to them are mostly going to be business, people trying to do a business profile altogether, and you see much more often where effectively now you see business people have a little bit whenever they have their profile, they have a little bit more of an understanding of what looks good for their profile specifically because they're trying to sell themselves, right? You don't see a lot of people prepping for a wedding doing that, however, or going to that resource. And it's a great tool to benefit from. little things about, how to pose for camera depending on what you're wearing. So go with the photographer and maybe that one coach altogether, and then bring your dress with you. If the makeup artist is going to be, it can be there, even better. Plan a planification day for your photo shoot and say, this is the dress that I have. How should I pose in order to make it look good? Planning for the amount of people in those pictures altogether. If it's going to be sunny shoot all together. And I mean, some people will actually do a one-on-one with makeup artists beforehand, but if you can do that with the photographer as well there too, even better, because then the photographer understands who is working with you on your face to begin with, because of course there's a tight relationship between a makeup artist and a photographer, despite the fact that they could have never met before, but basically this makeup artist is going to affect your lighting, is going to affect the shadowing, is going to affect the location as well there too, right? So all of these little things that makes quite a difference, right?
I usually recommend that people have at least an engagement session before their wedding so that
Yeah,
they get to work with the photographer
at
and
least a photographer, exactly. Something I would add specifically for female, and that's more on the skincare and as well there too, is how every time you have something important going on, you always have a sit. Go to the spa the day before. Yeah, and you don't want to do that. A lot of people don't realize that. It's like, why every time I have something going on, I have this it? It's because you've gone and do this deep cleansing of your face. You probably done a mask the day before, something to enhance your natural beauty, of course, the day before. And basically, your pores are like, it's like having an apartment and you only have one door. So that's your front door, and then that's your back door. So there's no other door. If you want to take out the garbage, there's only one door you're taking, and that's the front door, and that's it. It takes about 2 to 3 days before it clears out altogether. So, and same thing for a photo shoot as well there too. Don't go all mad with doing a scrub and a mask and go the beauty parlor, for hours or the day right before. If you're gonna do so, wait at least 3 days before, or sorry, plan it at least 3 days before so that your skin has the time to heal. And then of course that's whenever you'll end up with better results from your pictures than the other way around. So yeah.
right before we wrap up here, I just wanted to ask you how people can get a hold of you
Yeah.
if they'd like to discuss skincare or modeling or any of that.
So if you want to discuss modeling or if you want to book any models, we're mainly serving London and area, but we also have some models in the Toronto area as well there too. So www.theagencymodels.ca. Email is info@theagencymodels.ca. And basically, be as specific as possible whenever you're trying to book models as to what you want and when you want them. If you're calling or if you're emailing with regards to being a model, again, info@theagencymodels.ca. I forgot to mention the phone number. It's 519-432-3955, 519-432-3955. As much information about yourself as possible. Send us your measurements, as well as your height, any experience you may have. If you have any tattoos, if you have any piercings, these are things that I would want to know in advance as well. For Nature's Way Body Care, basically info@naturalbodycare.ca, www.naturalbodycare.ca is the website. Yes, and then basically you can go onto a website, just look at some of the products you'll be interested in. I strongly recommend that you book a skincare consult. We can either just talk about your skin in general, or we can talk about my products and how my product will suit your skin specifically. So what I like to do mainly whenever I do a consult is that I will do half of your face. We're going to go and clean, tone, moisturize, scrub, and do a mask on half of your face, so that way you're having a better understanding of what it's doing at the time, how to do it as well there too whenever you go home, but also the difference between before and after. At www.naturalbodycare.ca, you'll also find a tab for personal training. Basically, what I do is that I'll see you once a month. And then we'll basically go through, for most of my clients, it's going to be pretty much high intensity interval training, basically. Um, and the idea is to, again, show you how to do it yourself so that you can do it in a setting. You can either do it in a gym setting if you have a gym setting. You can do it at home if you want to do it at home. And of course, any questions, just feel free to contact. And then all of those websites will also have blogs as well there too that will be directly available through those blogs. So chances are that on a natural body care website, there's going to be a few blogs talking about, for example, little mistakes that people do here and there that you can use for your own. The agency website will have great images as well there too. You can see what some of our girls are doing whenever they're being booked for great stuff. So yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much for talking with me today.
Thank you, Sophia, for having me.
Well, I hope you learned a lot from my conversation with Jessy. If you'd like to get a hold of me, you can do so at sophialemon.com. If you haven't picked up your copy of the Picture Perfect Guide yet, you can do so at pictureperfect.guide. And that's it for today, everyone. Thanks for watching. Bye.